I don't know. I might just go to bed. I'm very tired. I'm gonna be up in 5 hours for
But
work.
Gareth, I could tell you about my Sonic Forces theory.
Well, see, David, now you're just giving me more reasons to go to bed. Alright, tell me your theory then.
Okay, I came up with this theory, this headcanon, if you will, to explain how Sonic Forces can work perfectly within the context of the Sonic the Hedgehog
David,
continuity. Okay,
that's crazy talk.
or not. Okay, okay. Okay, so you may know that I am a proponent of the idea that Sonic the Hedgehog should be a single timeline, right? I don't like the idea that Sonic Mania is an alternate timeline. That Sonic Generations makes this weird thing where Mania is in a separate timeline because there's nothing in Sonic Mania which would cause you to go, "Oh, of course these events could not have happened in the original Sonic timeline." There's nothing there. It's just Eggman finds the Phantom Ruby, there's some robots, Sonic hits them, end of story. There's nothing that's like, "Oh wow, because Sonic and Eggman learned things from the future, something changed." Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Like I like to argue in the
Is
fact
that
that
is that confirmed or is that just like
what?
eh?
Well,
Like
they're okay about the separate timeline thing.
yeah.
David, I think you're wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, there's the fact that there's the weird thing that in Sonic Forces, like Tails and Eggman both call classic Sonic, "Oh, you're that Sonic from another dimension," which is a line that doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering that the last time Tails interacted with a classic Sonic, he was like, "Oh, you're from the past," even though
Well,
they
I
were in a
always I always just saw that as a retcon because Izuku's insane.
right. I mean, you could just say it's a retcon, but that's boring. Okay, so
David,
Jesus Christ.
that's crazy talk.
okay. So here we go. Okay, so because also in the Sonic Mania Plus digital manual, it also makes reference to the fact that Sonic returns from a different dimension, which is like, huh, that's interesting. Like they've reinforced it in the digital manual. Now I know that the common theory is that, oh, because of Sonic Generations there's a split timeline, but that bothers me because you still have all the classic games must happen before Sonic Adventure. Um, Technically, if you want to consider the word dimension, people say that time is the fourth dimension. So it could also be some weird technobabble, which is just meant to confuse people. Because maybe, sometimes there's the sense that, oh, they say this thing is canon, but the games don't really want to reinforce that this fact is canon, so maybe it's not really canon. Sonic the Hedgehog timeline canon is perfect, it's fine, don't worry about it, everything is good.
But
Okay.
David,
Well,
why does it matter?
but you see, I have this theory. Okay, because when Classic Sonic arrives in Sonic Forces, right, and he runs in, and Tails is ducking, and his tails are up in the air, and he's scared because Chaos Zero is there, and he'll just make Tails wet, which will be slightly uncomfortable. Classic Sonic hits him once, and he's done. And Tails looks at him, and he's like, "Whoa, you're from another dimension." Tails says it so with such conviction, such strength, that it's odd considering what Tails has gone through prior. Like he must have still experienced Sonic Generations. Maybe. Now here's the thought process, right? Because that's the Sonic from Sonic Mania. Now what has been going on in Sonic Mania, right? It's Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. They're running through all of these zones, and there's the Phantom Ruby. The Phantom Ruby, which when held, it can warp space. It can transform things. It gives the user what they desire, right? Like it's so in the course of Sonic Mania, who's touching the Phantom Ruby? It's Eggman. It's the Hard-Boiled Heavies. It touches Metal Sonic very briefly, very sensually. And anyway, at the very end of the game, right, when you're fighting the King Heavy and you're doing the hits and Eggman's doing the hits and the Phantom Ruby's jumping back and forth, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? The Phantom Ruby interacts with the Chaos Emeralds and opens up a portal, and Sonic the Hedgehog gets sucked through that portal, right? And then he lands in a place. He lands in a place where Tails looks at him and says, "You're Sonic from another dimension." So what I am presupposing is that perhaps Sonic the Hedgehog has gone into a different dimension, but it's not because Mania becomes an alternate timeline, but instead that somehow the Phantom Ruby and the Chaos Emeralds interacting together have created a pocket dimension in which that is influenced by Dr. Eggman that sole purpose is to somehow destroy Sonic the Hedgehog. And that is a universe that did not exist until Classic Sonic stepped into
David,
it. And the
Maybe
fact
the game's just bad.
Yeah, I'm like, David,
Yeah,
it's a retcon.
No. See, here's the idea,
No,
right?
it is, David. It is literally a retcon. I like where you're going, David. But the fact that you have to be like, there's a shadow dimension somehow that does this thing because of this one line in Forces that is obviously a retcon because now Izuku wants them to be different characters.
But they're not. Okay, so here's the
Oh, I wish we had the money and resources to put Izuku and David into a room together. So Izuku could be like, Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a classic Sonic and Modern, they're two different characters, and David just goes, but they're not. Like, listen, mate, you're wrong. Like,
right. No, you could. Well, you see, because then it can explain why, certain characters aren't acting in character and why certain things seem to exist and where it doesn't make sense. The idea is that if Eggman has been holding the Phantom Ruby, what has been his main desire? He wants to take over the world and he wants to destroy Sonic. Sonic then, at the end of Mania, gets transported to a world where Eggman has won and Sonic's been captured for 6 months, right? So... But it's somehow when it interacts with the Chaos Emeralds, like that's where the point of conception happens. And so when Classic Sonic arrives in a universe which is designed solely to destroy him, at least for the Phantom Ruby side, it's being created on both ends. Like the past is being informed, and there's also, the future is continuing as well. Now the thing is that because the Chaos Emeralds were involved, and so that's what helps give form because. Okay, so okay, I'm kind of jumping around. It's fine. Don't worry about it. See, the idea.
I saw what you ate for dinner last week.
Is that because of how weird, like you look at the game, right, and you look at the levels, you're running through Green Hill, you're running through Chemical Plant, you see the Death Egg. These are places that Classic Sonic knows very well. And then there's shadows of things that have happened beyond that, but you don't really get much about them. And that's because Classic Sonic, through generations, only saw hints as small details of what his future was, but he was never painted a picture. He was never told of any actual events. So the reason those characters just kind of exist, like Silver, he's just there because Classic Sonic saw Silver, but he didn't know he was a time traveler, so Silver is just there. But the Chaos Emeralds help inform the universe to slowly form into what Sonic's world actually is. Because the Chaos Emeralds can exist outside of time as well, right? Because in Sonic 06, you can use a pair of Chaos Emeralds to travel through time, so the Chaos Emeralds must be in tune with the timeline to some degree. Okay, so then when you look at something like Classic Tails, the reason he is so nervous, so shy, so scared is because Sonic still thinks of Tails as more of a sidekick than as a peer, right? The events of Sonic Adventure haven't happened. His evolution to a more strengthened character, more independent character haven't happened yet, according to Classic Sonic, because it's prior to Sonic Adventure. Now, Tails?
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Oh, what? Right. Now the thing about... Wait, Wendy's? What? What'd you say? No, you see, now the reason Tails becomes so attached to Classic Sonic is because he is, to some degree, in his subconscious, aware of the fact that his universe wouldn't exist without the Phantom Ruby with the Chaos Emeralds interacting, and that it only exists because of Sonic. And that if it succeeded in its goal, killing off Sonic, then the universe would cease to exist. That's why he's so invested, and that's why he's also nervous that if they win, and Classic Sonic goes back home, that Tails, in Forces, would cease to exist. He is afraid of that event. It's like, that's why he's so freaked out, because when Sonic returns, when his Sonic returns, he's like, hey, I'm alive. Tails is still oddly obsessed with Classic Sonic. He's still oddly invested in the fact that this other Sonic is there. He's treating him almost like a pet, and it's because he sees Classic Sonic as the reason for him existing. Now, he's not going to say this outright. It's a subconscious thing, because nobody's really acknowledging the fact that there's this universe is being created from the ground up on both ends. And that's also kind of why the Phantom Ruby is so weird.
David,
what?
no. Please keep going.
Yeah. Look. This is to
Like,
explain.
David, I just think if you redirected your effort, you could be like curing cancer or something. But, nobody on FTCR putting as much effort into anything as David is right now to try and fight the fact that it's just a fucking retcon of like one line.
Right. Well, I mean, okay. So also because we could get weird, we could say there's a metatextual element. If the universe is being built, right? If the universe is being built from the ground up, right? If it didn't exist until Classic Sonic appears and Tails sees him, then the player having to create the avatar, the create
This
a
is what
character
Cat lives with on a daily basis.
that is yes. Okay, right. So because like the create a character, the avatar, whatever the heck his name is, what is you
Buddy.
the right. So the characters are like, oh, we have a new recruit. The universe freezes because then there's that fourth wall breaking moment where the player then has to create a character to exist in this world because there are no characters that exist in this world yet because it's still being formed around Sonic. See, the Chaos Emeralds help it in a way that Sonic could actually win. If it was just the Phantom Ruby sending Sonic into a weird universe, he might not have the upper hand, but because the Chaos Emeralds are there, it helps influence things. It's a metatextual sort of thing. Like it's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay. Anyway, so then okay, right. So you also have that thing where it's like, oh, the Phantom Ruby acts different between Mania and Forces, right? See, the idea there is that the Phantom Ruby is able to create anything except itself. That's why there is so many prototypes. That's why it's so wonky, because the Phantom Ruby doesn't know how to make itself. The Phantom Ruby just is. And so then, so that's why it's so weird. That's why it's so funny. And then Infinite is partially, not completely, like the personality of what the Phantom Ruby is. You know, it's there. It's kind of it
Dumb.
David.
Yeah, because it's like
That's crazy talk.
the story sets it up so that you think Infinite is going to go against. You think he's going to go against Eggman, but he never does. And it's also weird that Eggman would give this random jackal such grand power without any checks. But nothing weird happens. You know, Eggman asks Infinite to do something, and he does, and Infinite never goes against Eggman, even when there are lines where it seems like he will. And that's because the Phantom Ruby, who was last touched by Dr. Eggman, is still influenced by the fact that, oh, Eggman is commanding me to do something. It doesn't know how to go against that. And so when Infinite falls apart mentally, it's because the Phantom Ruby realizes that it is being defeated, that it is losing that influence from Eggman, and that's why then all the power then goes into Eggman, and at the very end, Eggman goes silent, because the Phantom Ruby is actually losing at that point. Now, you see, because you know, the bit where Classic Sonic and the Avatar go into, like, null space or whatever it's called, that's actually the edge of the universe that's being created. That's why they can enter it so easily and leave so easily, because the universe is still small, it's still creating itself. It hasn't fully formed.
There was an actual level for no space, but they cut it, which is kind of big.
Right. So
David,
so it's like,
I think you're wrong.
Okay, so like at the end of the game, when Classic Sonic teams up with this alternate version of himself and the Avatar, like, he's able to win, and in that moment, he somehow, because they're all, you know,
Explain Episode Shadow then.
well, you see, Episode Shadow is informed because the past is slowly piecing itself together. Because if you think about it, Episode Shadow and the prequel comics and the main game, they don't gel together very well.
But
and that's
why
because
set up this big rivalry with Shadow, where is, you know, Infinite put on the mask as a direct result of Shadow.
Yeah,
and
but
then,
just
and then in the game proper, he's just like, oh, it's him. Okay, bye.
exactly, because
he goes ahead and makes clones of him.
well, yeah, because what it is that when the universe is coming together, it's imperfect because it doesn't fully know everything about Sonic's world in actuality. It's kind of based on Classic Sonic's memories, what he knows, what he believes, the glimpses that he's seen from the future, and then it's also reinforced by the Chaos Emeralds, who are kind of able to step outside of time-space and fill in some of the details, but not all of the details. Because, you know, even though the Chaos Emeralds are all powerful, they're not quite perfect, right? The Chaos Emeralds are a very strange thing. We don't understand how they work, how they think, how they are. And that's why then suddenly you get the story that doesn't fully congeal, because it is an imperfect world that is slowly trying to piece itself together, and the backstory is slowly being informed. Because if it is being created, its past and its future at the same time, then, because like there are technically events that happen. Sonic gets captured, but the game even doesn't bother to show you what happens over those 6 months, because to the universe, to the Phantom Ruby, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Sonic gets captured and Sonic gets defeated. Those 6 months are unimportant.
He gets tortured for 6
Okay,
months.
I need to ask, because I've just been kind of confused the whole time, but I think I finally figured out what your point was. So it's Sonic Forces is the result of classic Sonic combining with the Phantom Ruby, and the Phantom Ruby creates this kind of fake future universe that he then travels to.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
Yes, the Phantom Ruby.
Okay, so instead of the popular fan theory that Sonic Mania is the insane drug trip, it's Sonic Forces is the insane drug trip.
Right. Because Sonic Forces, like the story, the way the characters act, the way things behave, I mean, the fact that Knuckles is put in charge of an army and then goes, whoops, we killed 90% of our forces in a minute, is insane. That is a drug-fueled trip. Mania is just, oh, we're on Angel Island and then we went to West Side Island. That's not a drug-fueled trip. That's a day trip. That's what that is. So you see that...
That's taking some Dayquil. Forces is taking Z-Quil mixed with LSD.
So yeah, so at the end, when Classic Sonic disappears, Tails looks pensive, however, because he thinks the universe is about to implode in on itself. He thinks everything is about to disappear, but it doesn't, because Classic Sonic, working with this Forces version of himself, like they are somehow able to defeat the Phantom Ruby, and it's not that they're inside the Phantom Ruby, they're inside a universe that the Phantom Ruby helped create. So when Classic Sonic leaves, the universe itself continues to exist, and as it continues to fully form unto itself, what do we get? But the IDW comic written by Ian Flynn, where you have 4 issues that have to reestablish how the characters function with each other. So the idea, right, is that the IDW comic is a sequel to Forces, and that it is its own thing.
Even though Ian Flynn has said multiple times on his podcast that's not true.
Wait, when has he ever argued directly with what I just said?
Because people ask him if the book is either in canon with the games or if it's a sequel to Forces. And he always says no to that question. He always says no, it's its own separate thing, it's its own different like universe type of thing. Like so,
well, no, I mean
it's in canon to the games in the sense that in that universe,
it's not.
Forces.
right.
Well, I mean, like
it's no
the games. The games. The way he phrases it is that pretty much like he doesn't have an exact. Ian Flynn does not want to commit to like listing this happened like this timeline because but that's because Sega keep changing what they want to do with the fucking timeline essentially. So he doesn't want to put something into the book that can be contradicted by Sega in the next game. But the way the way he sees it is you can go into the IDW book genuinely thinking that like every Sonic game has happened. Like that comic Sonic has gone through Unleashed, has gone through Generations, has gone through SA1 and all that shit. But when he's asked directly if it's a sequel to, like if it's canon to the games, he always says no. Like you could make the case, that all the games, Forces and before, are canon to the book. But the book is its own separate timeline.
That was what I was trying to say. Is that
Right, but
it's not canon to the games, but in the comic world, because like Forces clearly happened in that story. Like like the Forces happens and then that game happened, but it's like in the game universe. Yeah, the comic is its own separate thing. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Well, you see, no, because when I throw in the IDW thing at the end, the idea is that like the comics are a sequel to Forces, but the idea is that Forces is no longer part of the game universe. Like, Classic Sonic showed up and did a thing and left, so that the game universe timeline, which starts with, the classic games and then Sonic Adventure and Heroes and Shadow and all the way through to Lost World, the next game is then Team Sonic Racing. There is no Forces. Like, Forces is its own thing. And I'm when I say that, I'm not saying that Ian Flynn thinks that when he writes it. I'm not saying that Sega thinks it. What I'm saying is that this is a bit of headcanon that could explain why Forces is the way it is, and that somehow, if you look at it that way, that Mania is part of the main timeline, things continue on, but classic Sonic never gets to a point where Forces could or would happen. Because it's in its own
Sega
pocket
just don't
dimension.
give a shit about continuity.
Well, that's no fun.
There's also another thing to help your point, which is that that Infinite hasn't been mentioned or shown up at all, and apparently, at least according to Ian Flynn, is that Sega doesn't want Infinite to show up and appear in anything at the moment.
That to me sounds like because they might want to be bringing him back at some point in the games, and they don't want the book to contradict that. That's not what. Oh, they're like, this character was terrible. Let's never do it again.
I mean, that was what happened with Mephiles, is that they were like, we don't want you to use Mephiles at all.
Well, because he was defeated. He was erased from history.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would love, if I was able to, I would love to put Steven and David in a room. And just have David go on these long topics about the like nerdiest, like continuity driven story issues with the Sonic franchise, and I just want to be able to have the history eraser button from Ren and Stimpy, and just see how long Steven lasts before he just smashes that button. Well, with David. Look, see, David, I wanna, the next time you come to Ohio, I wanna film videos of you on like a green screen, just in small doses, maybe like 5 or 10 minute chunks of you just going over certain like story issues with the Sonic franchise.
Okay.
I think that would be a fun series. I think that would be fun.
Oh, could we like splice in footage from Superman the movie where he's flying the world backward, and then I'm like, oh hey guys, so I have this idea. It's a bit of headcanon involving Sonic Forces. I don't know if you'd be interested. Alright, I guess I should stop recording.